It's Wednesday, February 17th. Welcome to CT Pulse on the HAN Network. I'm Kate Czaplinski with my wonderful co-host, Josh Fisher.
Whoa, wonderful. What did I do?
I'm feeling nice today. But Josh, I mean, we've been hearing about the Grammys, the Oscars, but what's really more important than journalism awards season?
Well, a lot. But for us, it's, we take these rather seriously. And the New England Newspaper and Press Association convention and awards banquet is in Boston this weekend. Earlier this week, we spoke to some of our HAN Network's nominees, and then we have also with us today, live in studio.
That's right.
2 more nominees.
Yeah,
actually 3.
Yeah,
including you.
Oh, whatever. Well, we're excited to introduce Susan Schultz, editor of the Darien Times, and our own Rob Adams, our sports director. They're nominated for a multimedia award with NEMPA. Guys, welcome.
Kate, Josh, good to see you.
Hi there. Good to see you guys. Now, so, Rob, tell us a little bit about this. So this is based on an editorial that Susan wrote and a game that we covered as HAN Radio in the audio-only days. First, tell us about the game and what happened.
Yeah, the game was a good hockey game. Eric Gendron, who's directing today, Jake Zimmer, and then eventually Chris Kalin all joined me for the call. I did the play-by-play. And we were there for a doubleheader. We were there to do the Boys FCAC Championship between Darien and Greenwich later that day. But this girls' state championship game that nobody was covering was the early game. And it featured a co-op of East Catholic, Granby, and South Windsor. They go by ETB, against Simsbury. And it just seemed like something that, why let this game go uncovered? You know, it's there, and, you know, you guys know me pretty well. If there's a game, I'm happy to show up with a headset and broadcast it. So it was a good game. ETB had a 1-0 lead early. They had 2-0 lead in the second period. Simsbury got it back to 2-1, and then it got tied up in the second period. So we went to, or the third period, excuse me, we went to overtime, and then another overtime. And all of a sudden, we thought we were going to a third overtime, and if we play the audio, you will hear we're as surprised as anyone as to what happened.
Yeah, let's listen to that audio right now.
Stopping and waiting is Katie Grigley. Grigley with 3, brings it across. Maggie Grigley with 1, and we go to the end of double. Stopping and waiting is Katie Grigley. Grigley with 3, brings it across. Maggie Grigley with 1, and we go to the end of double overtime.
Yeah, why not? We play 6. Let's go. So now we're going to do 3 games tonight, Rob.
Jeez. How you doing, Eric?
I'm okay.
The problem is he drank all his water. Eric needs a drink, people.
They are lining things up, and it looks like
we're going to have a tie.
We're going to have co-champions. Now, Simsbury is still talking at their bench.
I think they're looking to come out for another period.
I don't blame them. They have called this game after double overtime. I don't know about you, but I feel empty.
Just a bit. Co-champs is not a fun thing, but, you know, we got a lot of paying customers in here waiting to see a different game, and
I think a lot of people are annoyed that we're ending in a 2-2 tie, if you want to know the truth. I have to admit, folks, this is one of the more disappointing ends I've ever seen to a sporting event.
Being quite a shocker for many.
It really did turn out to be surprising. You know, Chris Kalin at one point says, now we're going to play basically the equivalent of 3 games with the 2 overtimes, and, you know, it was going to be a long day, so it was going to turn into a third overtime, you get 3 games. But they had them walk off after that double overtime, and we're all looking, and we're watching Rich Buellin, who heads up girls hockey, walking onto the ice, handing out the medals, and we're going, we're done here? It really left a really sour taste.
So, Susan, what caught your attention?
Well, it was not just the game itself, but also the follow-up interviews that Rob did with the captains that really kind of put it over the edge for me in terms of the editorial. It conveniently also happened to be Women's History Month, that March, every March. And the girls were very gracious in the interview, but they also mentioned how they were so excited to play for a crowd like that, because they never play for crowds like that. And even though they knew the crowd really wasn't necessarily there for them, they were still really, the crowd was into it, right? They got really into it, and they were just like, you know, it was so great. And I started to think, even though eventually the discussions came up about, like, it wasn't because it was a girls' game that they called it. but it just made me sad to hear them say like how this was the only way they could play for a crowd like that.
Right.
So basically the editorial was about, how far women have come, but, still, there's a lot of struggles that women have. And I also called for the game to be played.
Yeah, there was a call. Both teams were into the idea of playing it. If you remember, Josh, we talked about rebroadcasting it if it came to be,
definitely.
and it never happened. We eventually did have Rich Buellin on. Paul Silverfarb and I had him on Nutmeg Sports, and he's as much an advocate for girls sports as anyone. Just won his 300th girls game the other day for New Canaan. It ultimately turned out to be just one of those combination of things where there wasn't the ice time left, and it wasn't a boy-girl thing, but unfortunately it looked that way, and it got national attention that wasn't necessary in the end.
Because it was the FCAC championship boys game. Was it the championship game was coming up next?
The championship,
right.
yeah.
So
yeah.
And as we know, it's ice time is not cheap, and
It's not.
there aren't not even every town has a rink.
And you've been at FCAC championship games, as have I. You know how crowded it gets, and that's what Susan was referring to. That place was now going nuts. I mean, and I'm sure Eric remembers as well.
Yeah.
It
But
got
that's cool.
intense.
And any sports fan who shows up, no matter who's
Is gonna
playing, if there's
appreciate
a
that,
tie in overtime, that's exciting. Whether
Yeah.
it's cricket, hockey, or basket weaving, you're going to stay there
Tiddlywinks.
and root on. Has Rich Buellin or as the because girls hockey is not a CIAC sanctioned
That's
sport,
correct.
so it's run under a different governing body than most of the other scholastic sports in Connecticut. Have they made any change to how this year's championship would be if there's a tie?
Well, for one thing, this year's championship will be played at 8 o'clock on, I believe it's March 5th, at the West Haven Edward L. Bennett rink. So there's no game afterward. Ice time's not a problem.
Go all
Now
night.
they will play until the end. And there's a little bit of bitterness still toward really the FCAC, because the FCAC was the host last year. And I don't know that that's entirely fair as well. I think it was kind of, to use an overused term, that perfect storm.
Right. Do you think it would have been easy, maybe if they'd explained beforehand, we're going to play 2 overtimes, and if there's because they do that in soccer, if in the state championships, there's been in boys and girls soccer.
Yeah, which none of us like to begin with.
Right, of course not. No.
So I think if that had been a little clearer to everyone, and I don't think it was. I don't think that was entirely clear either. And thus there was a lot of confusion on the ice and in the broadcast booth.
Great. Well, this is exciting too, because it's the first time that our former
broadcasting,
HAN
right.
radio and now HAN network got recognized by the New England Press Newspaper Association. So that's
in conjunction
exciting.
with one of our great publications. So very cool. Well, congratulations to both of you guys. Thanks so much for coming in studio and talking to us. Rob, I know you were here anyway, but
Thanks,
Susan,
for
thanks
coming
so
up.
much for
Nice to
coming.
get her up here.
No
All right.
problem.
And best of luck this weekend, of course.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
All right, thanks,
Thanks,
guys. Well, earlier this week, Josh, we talked to a few of the other nominees in our
Yes.
company. Let's check out one of those interviews right now. Michael Katarivas, managing editor for the New Canaan Advertiser, is nominated for a NEMPA award this year, stealing a little bit of Dave Stewart's thunder as sports editor there for a sports feature story. Michael's joining us now. Michael, welcome.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about this story, the title of which is A Resident's Simply Astonishing Run Through New York. Tell us a little bit of the background.
I was in the office one day, and a lot of parents come in to talk about maybe trying to get a little publicity for their children. It's usually like they're in a school play, or it could be anything from they did some artwork for somewhere. So it's a community newspaper,
Yeah,
so
lots of proud parents, right?
Right, we're used to that. So I thought it was just another proud parent, as you say. And it was a mother, Barb Clayton is her name, and she came in. She had like a little card with some information on it. So you listen to what they have to say. And she goes, "My daughter ran the New York Marathon," which was kind of cool. So she kind of was just telling me that she graduated from New Canaan High School and had just run the marathon. So did I think that would possibly be something that the paper would be interested in? I said, yeah, I think so. We don't have too many marathon runners in town. So I asked, so how did she finished obviously, and how was it? And she said, well, yeah, she finished 19th of all U.S. women.
Wow.
Out of 20,420.
That's incredible.
And 40th over all the women in the race. And the New York City Marathon is like the biggest marathon in the world in terms of like prestige and numbers of runners.
Right.
So I was kind of blown away by that, and I thought that's a pretty amazing story. And she had like the statistics of how she did, and it turned out it was the first marathon she'd ever run, and she was just going on and on with information that was just like astounding me. She had been a sports star at New Canaan High School. This is Nancy Clayton, by the way, her daughter, and she had both knees reconstructed surgically. And basically ran the marathon on a whim. She hadn't even planned on it. A friend of hers, asked her, why don't you run the marathon with me? It'll be fun. So she did a little bit of training, but nothing serious. She did a lot of, she's a nurse in New York, so she doesn't really have access to country roads or anything. But, she trained for it. And then, she knew she was a good runner, but to finish 19th of all U.S. women out of, and 40th, I think it was, out of over 20,000, was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
She just came in by 1/100th of a second under the 3-hour mark.
She said that her goal was to finish under 3 hours, and she was timing herself. Obviously, she's obviously a superior runner, and she said that her goal was to try to finish under 3 hours. And she said the first 18 miles weren't a problem. She was timing herself, whatever, and then as she got close to the last 6 miles, suddenly it got really hard. Felt her body breaking down a little bit. She slowed up, and by the time she got into Central Park, and I think you have to do another 3 laps there, whatever it is. And as she approached the finish line from a distance away, there's a big digital clock at the top. And people are going crazy, and she could see that it was still under 3 minutes. And when she passed under the wire, officially her time was 2 hours. 59 minutes and 59 seconds. That's pretty incredible, Now, subsequently, it was lowered to 2 hours and 58 minutes and change, because they know that runners who start in the back of the pack have to walk for a little while before they can actually start running.
Okay.
There's so many people. So they do adjust it. But, her time when she saw the clock was 1/100th of a second under 3 hours, which is pretty amazing.
And that's not that far from what it takes to get into at least the Olympic trials, right? Like a quarter of an hour or something?
It's 12. Her mother pointed out, later that that she was not that far off, and then she had a decision to make. This is, this is not the last marathon; it was the one before that. Whether she wanted to devote her life to it, whether she wanted to get professional training, whether she probably wanted to move to a warmer climate. She's a nurse and she has other goals in life, and she wasn't sure at the time what she was going to do, but I did speak to her a couple of weeks ago, and she hasn't run another race since.
Oh, wow. Now, Michael, what's unique about this story is the rundown you gave us, the index card we had up on the screen. That's how you started this story. So you wrote this story giving the reader a look at what happened. This mother walks in with an index card, everything that you said, and it's kind of an interesting way to write a story. How did you make that decision to kind of give that background information?
Well, I thought, just as I was amazed by her just walking in and being, I could have just as well told her, no, this isn't really much of a story. And I don't think she would have been surprised. She probably, well, all right, she tried,
Yeah.
But to me, as I think I pointed out in the story, it's probably one of the most incredible athletic achievements in New Canaan history. Just somebody winning, finishing that well in a race with that many people.
Right.
So, it had just a homespun feel to it that I just thought, God,
and with their lack of experience in doing it
lack
also.
Lack of experience and on rebuilt knees.
Yeah.
Had major surgery on both, because she was I think it was a lacrosse star in high school and on
Played
the
at Dartmouth,
field
right?
hockey. She went to, I think it was Colgate. I think it was.
Colgate, right. Okay.
Yeah, and played a lot of sports. So obviously she's obviously a great athlete, But the amazing part was just like that. Her mother was just so like.
Do you think this would be interesting? Right?
Yeah, do you think that'd be interesting? I said, yeah, I think this would be interesting. So I had the card, and I thought, you know what, you got to put that in the story.
And you went with it, and it was great. I love that. And I love that as managing editor of the New Canaan Advertiser, you're nominated for a Sports Feature Award, which obviously isn't usually the stories that you're working on. You're more of a news guy.
Yeah, well, Dave Stewart is a longtime sports editor,
Yes.
and he's overwhelmed with covering all the games.
A lot going
so,
on.
I did mention it to him that this woman came in, but, it's not a story, of a team. So, I think he kind of was like, well, if you want to do it, go ahead, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, because I felt it was worth a lengthy feature.
Yeah.
Talking to
And it's
her.
lengthy.
It's lengthy.
I met with her at the
We're just teasing
library, and we had a long interview, and she's really charming, and So I really felt it was worth something, a long feature. So I approached it that way, and Dave was cool with it.
Cool.
Well, Michael, thanks so much, and we'll find out how you place this weekend up in Boston.
Yeah.
So best of luck.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it very much.
All right, thanks so
Michael.
much, Michael. Well, Michael Katarivas, managing editor of the New Canaan Advertiser, nominated for a Sports Feature Award.
Had a sports injury that needs immediate care? Coastal Ortho Express Urgent Care gives you direct access to an orthopedic specialist quickly. Their highly trained orthopedic professionals expertly treat you without an appointment. Skiing, snowboard, or sports accident, sprain or fracture, Coastal Ortho Express can help. Coastal Ortho Express Urgent Care open Monday through Saturday in the iPark building at 761 Main Avenue in Norwalk. Call 203-845-2070 or coastalorthoexpress.com. Find them on Facebook at Coastal Ortho CT.
Darien Sport Shop is a unique store because it's a family store. A busy mom can come in with kids in tow and find everything she needs for them, and even find a dress for herself for Saturday night. And if she's in a rush, she can simply go home and order it from us that night. We'll deliver it the next day. The Darien Sport Shop. We're pretty on the outside and amazing on the inside. Conveniently located with free and easy parking at 1127 Post Road, Darien, Connecticut. Or shop us online at dariensport.com.
It's the new year. The to-do list is long and it's easy to feel pulled in many directions at once. Your professional personal shoppers at Walter Stewart's are ready to check groceries off your list by shopping for you. Save extra time this year and spend it doing more important things. Great food and wine delivered to your home with the same-day service. Shop Stewart's online at stewartsmarket.com.
Here at the Organic Yard, we use bionutritional products in our lawn care programs, which reduces the need for fertilizers, nitrates, phosphates, and pesticides up to 80%, making a safer environment for your family and pets. With our organic lawn treatment, you'll receive vigorous, healthy plants with improved root development and better drought resistance. Enroll now in our 2016 Organic Yard program and get a free organic deer tick treatment. Call us today at 914-764-5491 or go to our website at millerslandscapinginc.com.
Well, there's still a bite out on the water. Most anglers have decided to stow the gear for the winter. Just because Mother Nature isn't cooperating doesn't mean you can't see the latest models of all your favorite gear. With 2 convenient locations, it couldn't be easier to get your fix of summer. Boater, beach bum, fisherman, or simply love the New England coast, this is a unique place to shop. The Dock Shop, 51 Tokenique Road, Darien, 609 Riverside Avenue, Westport, or on the web, dockshop.com.
Hi, I'm Rob Adams with my good friend Donald Eng, and we're the home team for Nutmeg Sports, Monday through Wednesday at 2 o'clock right here on the HAN Network. We are the place for all things Connecticut sports, so come hang out with us on Nutmeg Sports. Don? They don't call him the best color man in the game for nothing. Nutmeg Sports, 2 o'clock, Monday through Wednesday right here on the HAN Network.
Patricia Gay, editor of the Weston Forum, better known to us as Patty Gay, is nominated for a NEMPA Award this year for environmental reporting. Patty, thanks so much for joining us today.
Oh, hi, Kate. Hi,
Great
Josh.
to see
How are you?
Now, Patty, your story, The Grand Ole Ospreys Come to Weston, has one of my favorite leads. I just have to read it. As Weston Police Sergeant Patrick Daubert walked to his patrol car parked behind Weston Town Hall the other day, a half-eaten trout fell from the sky and landed at his feet. While ordinarily this might be considered unusual, he instantly knew the fish wasn't one of the prophetic plagues of Egypt. The Ospreys are back, basically. Tell us a little bit about how this story came about.
Well, this was an interesting story. It first came about from a text message. Patrick Daubert, a sergeant with the Weston Police Department, and I keep in contact when there's various events going on, police events and accidents and such. And so we have each other's phone number. And he texted me, a half-eaten trout has just fallen from the sky and landed on me, so the Ospreys are back, because he knew it from the trout. And I was like, whoa, it was not a text message I expected to get. So I texted him back, and he explained it to me, and I thought it was just super funny that that's how he found out the Ospreys are back. And instead of being upset, which some people might be, to have fish fall from the sky, they're thrilled in Weston Town Hall because they love the Ospreys. So to them, it was just wonderful. He said he brought that fish into Town Hall and showed people, you know, holding up the fish and said, the Ospreys are back. And sure enough, there's a cell tower in the police area near Town Hall, and the Ospreys had built a nest up there.
And it's different in Weston than we've seen in some other towns where ospreys have built nests. Whether CL&P used to try and get rid of the ospreys in some towns, and we've seen that elsewhere. There've been battles in New York City to save osprey nesting on buildings. So how come in Weston people don't mind ospreys moving in rent free onto their cell tower?
Well, first I just want to explain what an osprey is, so some people may not know what they are. They're large birds, they're large raptors. They're kind of like bald eagles. They have enormous wingspan. They have like 4 finger feathers on them that differentiate them from other birds, right? They have their finger feathers. And there's a picture now showing an osprey carrying something to its nest.
And that is actually an osprey in Weston that Scott Mullen got a photo
Yes,
of, right?
yes.
Okay. So not just a clip, not just a file.
Oh, no. Scott Mullen, wonderful photographer. I asked him to come take pictures because I tried taking them on my own.
It's a little hard. And you said he was nervous about the ospreys showing up for him.
He was very nervous because he said, unlike a regular interview where you can schedule the subject to show up, you can't tell the ospreys, can you show up at 12 o'clock for your photos? So it was kind of like a wing and a prayer type of thing.
Yeah, nice.
And he showed up and the ospreys showed up, fortunately, and they were there, and so he got that. So this actually emanated from a text message. These big, large raptors, they go back and forth to water to catch fish. That's what they live off of. And in Weston, you're not that far from Long Island Sound in Westport. Plus, you have the Saugatuck Reservoir, and they will eat both freshwater or saltwater fish. So that's what they live off of. And they like to build high nests up very high. That's their habit. So when they do nest, they go in high places. So to answer your question, though, and I wasn't trying to avoid it, but to answer your question, we're not always so welcoming in Weston of the ospreys.
Okay.
And by they, I mean cell tower people. The townspeople and the town hall workers and the police love them, but they did find it the very first year the nest was built and then taken down, and the ospreys rebuilt it again. Now, of course, there's no proof of who took it down, but not everybody has access to the cell tower. So after I wrote an initial story about it 3 years earlier, but it was just a short story. I think the publicity made it okay.
Okay.
And so this time around, when I had heard the ospreys are back, I really wanted to do a nice full story. Part of the motivation was so that they would get publicity, so that people would leave them alone.
That's interesting.
Does it, because there's not a lot of cell coverage in Weston. Certainly in the center of town where the police station is. There's no this doesn't affect cell surface, does it?
I don't know if it does. It hasn't when I've been up there, but I have to think, you were seeing the photos of the nest up there. I mean, it's really a lot of branches and twigs and things in the nest, and it's right in a central location. I can't believe that's wonderful.
Right? It can't be that helpful.
Well, it can't improve cell service, probably. At least.
Maybe it does help. Who knows?
But I haven't noticed any problems when I've been in Weston.
Well, that's good to know. Well, Patty, like we said, this had a very fun lead, but it's really a very informative piece on these birds, and you just really did a great job with it, including telling us about something called Osprey Nation, which sounds fun.
Yes, as I was doing research for the story, in addition to talking to the people from Town Hall, I decided to go on the DEP's website and see if there was any more information about ospreys, and I came across a whole section about this thing called Osprey Nation, where the Department of Environmental Protection plus the Audubon Society is now doing osprey counts. Every year they try to count how many ospreys in osprey nests there are in the state of Connecticut, because there was a time when they were perilously close to extinction.
Wow.
Because of the use of DDT, pesticide in the 1960s. It was wiping out the ospreys, and they were very close. There were only like a handful of ospreys in Connecticut. So after DDT was banned, the ospreys came back. And now there's such a joyous sense of, wow, now ospreys are really back. The DEP wanted to count them. And so now they started a count, and they asked for volunteers to help them count ospreys, and they couldn't believe the huge outpouring of support and volunteers that they got. So there's a lot of people now that are looking for the ospreys and counting them. And when I did this story, it was funny. I found out that the Weston nest on the cell tower wasn't in the count. they didn't even know about it. So now they added
nice.
it. Because of my
that's
story, they
great.
said, okay, now we're going to add that.
That's
good.
wonderful,
So it's-
Patty. Changing the world. I love it. No, Patty, seriously, great community story. You did such a nice job, and thank you so much for talking to us about it.
Oh, thank you. My pleasure.
And best of luck this weekend. Patty Gay, editor of the Weston Forum, nominated in the environmental reporting category. Jeanette Ross, editor of the Wilton Bulletin, is nominated for a NEMPA award this year in the transportation reporting category. Jeanette joins us right now. Thanks so much, Jeanette, for coming to our studio today.
Thanks for having me.
Now, Jeanette, you wrote an interesting story kind of following the commuter life on the Danbury branch line. And just to give people a little taste of that, the lead, power problems, equipment problems, late connections. Almost every day, it seems as if something is going wrong to prevent a smooth, timely ride from Wilton to Grand Central Terminal on Metro North's Danbury branch line. All you need to do is look at the Twitter feed.
And that's what I've been doing.
And that's what you have been doing. And you noticed all these problems, and you ended up following some veteran commuters and kind of talking to them a bit.
Yes. Well, I wrote this story last March, and it was a very bad winter. Metro North was having a lot of trouble even before the winter. And I wanted to, a lot of politicians, a lot of people were paying lip service to the problem. I guess they brought in a new guy at Metro North. And, but I wanted to know what it was like from the commuter's point of view. And one of the people I interviewed, Nick Batista, was a fairly regular letter writer to me. I've published many of his letters to the editor. They always have to do with the Danbury branch line. He gets on the train in Wilton. And so I emailed him and I said, Nick, I'd like to talk to you about this. Do you have any friends on the train that would talk to me as well? And he introduced me to Rich Aquan and Mike Moriarty, and the three of them, I had extensive conversations with them about their experiences.
And for those who don't know, the Danbury branch line is different than the rest of the New Haven line. It spurs up to Danbury from South Norwalk, but it's an unelectrified line. So
Correct.
they run the old diesel engines, pull and push the trains up and down the line. And I mean, I know I used to ride that line, Jeanette, and there's been, whether there was a bridge washed out up in Reading that stopped all the trains for a while, and the winter last year, like you said, when we had almost record-breaking snowfall totals, just really held it up. Because what happens sometimes too on that line is when if there's problems on the New Haven line, they might take the trains from the Danbury line and use them on the main line, and that leaves everybody up in the Danbury line out to dry.
Right.
And Wilton has two stations, Wilton and Cannondale.
Yeah.
So, but obviously, this hasn't stopped these gentlemen from taking the train.
No.
So, what's kept them going?
Well, it's interesting. They just, for example, don't want to go to Norwalk. One commuter told me, look, I live in Wilton, I live too far from Norwalk, I don't want to pay for parking, so, he takes the train. I would also add that some of the problems are not just with the Danbury branch line. It multiplies when there's a problem somewhere along the Metro North line in New York.
Right.
Grand Central Terminal, the Bronx, wherever there could be a problem. One of them was telling me that if, a train is due in to Grand Central and it's late, they may be held up to let the other train go in. Those rail yards are what, 100 years old, more? So it's just a really widespread problem. They told me that 30 years ago or 24 years ago when they moved up, that the ride was 1 hour, 17 minutes. Now it's 1 hour and 23 minutes, but it's mostly 90 minutes. It can be 3 hours to get in if there's a really, really bad day.
Yeah.
I asked them what it was like when the buses are substituted, and that's a completely different set of rules to follow. When I spoke with these fellows, I felt like I was a psychologist, and we were in therapy.
I love that.
Because they were they let it all hang out.
Yeah.
They did not hold back.
Yeah.
One fellow said, if we don't go up in a flaming fireball, that's a good day. So.
Now, you also spoke to a Metro North spokesman about some of these issues. How did they respond? What did they say?
They basically avoided any questions that I had about the the slow going, the delays. They attributed it mostly to the safety conditions that they were making. And, when news of the NEMPA award came into me, I thought to myself, I really should go back and talk to these fellas again and see if anything has improved.
That'd be great.
I don't know if it has,
Right.
but that's what they were saying.
That is a good question, since we've had a lighter winter this
Yes.
year as an example, and if they have made any improvements on that line. It's it can be, like you said, there's that bottleneck when you get down, as you get into into Harlem before
Yeah.
you get into the Park Avenue tunnel.
Yeah.
And that can really hold you up. And sometimes they have to change trains in South Norwalk if you're on the Danbury line. Other times it's a through train.
Right. They had stopped a through train because they wanted to make it easier for the reverse commuters at one point, and so everybody had to get off and go stand on the platform and get on. And people really rebelled against that. They changed that, but.
Because for most of that line is just one track too.
Yes.
So there's some pull-offs, but you can't send trains in both directions. And if you want to reverse commute, so you want to work, somewhere in Norwalk or farther south and work up in Danbury or that area, you can't show up to work before 9:30 in the morning.
Right.
Because I think that's the first train leaves, when I last checked, South Norwalk about 8:45 in the morning. So it's not like on the other lines
Right.
where you could live in New York City and commute
Yeah.
into Connecticut. You can't do that if you're working on the
Right.
Danbury line.
Right.
Well, Jeanette, I love that you talked to 3 different commuters and you also spoke to Metro North. Just a really great story, and we so appreciate you coming on to talk to us today.
Oh, thank you.
All right, best of luck this weekend. Jeanette Ross, editor of the Wilton Bulletin, nominated for an award in the transportation reporting category.
We're back live in our Shelton studios here on the HAN Network. You're watching CT Pulse along with Kate Czaplinski. I'm Josh Fisher, and Kate, you're also up for a nomination this year for a social issues story. You wrote a rather touching story about a when you were editor of the Trumbull Times,
Yes.
young high school student who committed suicide.
Right. This is obviously a story I wish I didn't have to write, Josh. But Abby Anderson, she was a sophomore in high school, and just a couple days before school was out for the summer, she killed herself. And later on, throughout the summer, there was just a big outpouring of, the community support and just people being devastated by this. She was a cheerleader. She was very popular in school. And then by the fall, her mother reached out to me, Gillian Anderson, and she wanted to talk about this. And she wanted to talk about it in the larger context of, first of all, thanking the community, but talking about depression and suicide, which I think is so important right now. So really all the credit goes to, Abby's family and to her family friends who talked to me for this story. But depression had been something that Abby was dealing with for a long time. She was in talk therapy, she was on medications, and then in one dark moment, she made this irreversible decision that just had all these devastating impacts for everyone.
Right.
And, one of the great things to come out of this story is thousands and thousands of dollars raised for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention through a community walk that this story helped promote that was going on. And they got hundreds of people out there for that, and all in Abby's memory. And I know they're still doing a lot of great work in her memory. And of course, we want to say if anyone is in crisis, they can call the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention's hotline. That's 1-800-273-TALK. You can also visit their website for services at afsp.org. So she's an amazing young woman, and it's a tragic story, but it's something important to talk about.
Yeah, and it's never easy, of course, to talk to a grieving family, but it's also one of the important things we do as community journalists is to remember those who have been lost, and very touching story.
And I have to say, her mother said this is a very complicated grief. Usually, people after something like this, they don't want to talk about it, whether it be a suicide or, in some cases, a drug overdose or something like that. So I give them really a lot of credit for wanting to talk about it and raise awareness about it.
Well, good luck to you this weekend, and good luck to everyone else.
Yes, some we haven't even talked to, like
No.
Dave Stewart, who's actually hanging out in the studio, but hiding from us as far as talking about his
He
nomination.
brought in his own closet to hide in. It's really weird. But we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to look at some of the stories we're keeping an eye on across Connecticut, and of course, our editorial cartoonist Doug Smith's going to stop by and preview the cartoons in tomorrow's newspapers.
I really wanted something that felt like a home. Coming from a big house, I wanted the feel of a home as opposed to a condo. The construction is incredible, whether it's the floors, the fireplace, the moldings, the lighting. It's as peaceful as my home was in the middle of the woods. It feels like a house. It does not feel like a condo or a townhome. I feel like I'm in my house.
Find over 1,000 special stories at Hospital for Special Surgery. Go to hss.edu/backinthegame.
I was jogging 5 months after my cartilage tear.
Skiing a year after hip surgery.
And playing grandma 4 weeks after hip replacement.
One special hospital, 1,000 special stories. See Connecticut patients at hss.edu/CT.
For more than 50 years, Triple S has been Fairfield County's expert service for carpet, upholstery, and drapery cleaning. We provide the best in repairs and in-depth restoration, understanding fabrics and how to properly clean and restore them. Our staff will come to your home to clean your wall-to-wall carpet to perfection. We can also pick up your fine carpets and bring them to our facilities with locations in Norwalk, Stamford, and Stratford. Triple S will get the job done fast, big or small. At Triple S, you can count on our people as well as our cleaning. Find us at triplesclean.com or 203-847-8000. I'm Kate Czaplinski. Join us for Coffee Break, weekdays at 11 to get the latest Connecticut news, weather, high school sports, and more. News doesn't get any more local than on Coffee Break on the HAN Network.
You are watching the HAN Network, and you're not alone. Nearly 500,000 viewers enjoyed our broadcasts in the first 5 months. Advertise on the network that reaches Fairfield County, Connecticut's most engaged audience. Contact Jessica Murrin, Advertising Director, at 203-273-7312 or email jessica@han.network.
And we're back on CT Pulse live on the HAN Network. As you can see, it is time for drawing conclusions with our editorial cartoonist, Doug Smith, who is tatting someone up this week, Doug. Yep. Yeah. All right, Doug, well, I'm excited. I took a little preview of some of your cartoons this week. There's a lot of fun, silly ones, and I really like them.
Again, hitting on that dad humor, the bad puns.
The dad humor and bad puns. I love it. All right, let's get to it. Oh, this one. Your blood pressure is very high. It's because of all the salt I've had in the last few weeks.
That was one I did for Wilton Bulletin. It just hits on the fact that the roads have been taking a beating.
Yep.
With all the plowing
and
going
soon
on.
those potholes are going to be coming out too. That'll be a fun one to deal with. And up next, we have, Shake Shack is coming to town. This is for Darien, I believe, right? Shake Shack's moving in. And legend has it, it was built on top of an ancient steakhouse.
Yep, it's taken the place of where Chuck's Steakhouse used to be.
Right.
And that was an institution in town for a million years.
That's kind of, so is that what happens when steakhouses die? They come back as
like
burger shacks?
I mean, they'll definitely, Chuck's
ghost
Steakhouse,
of like
they'll
a
probably
T-bone
have
floating
ghosts
around.
of like beehive hairdos and Rob martinis, things like that.
Baked potatoes and salad bars, yeah. And the Easton Arts Council's 6th annual Young Writers Competition is now accepting submissions. I don't know, Bill, I'm having trouble with your wording. These things like thou, methinks, and doth. Another bit of dad humor I like.
Yes, some nice commentary on how the English language has certainly changed.
Yeah. And I like that you give the information on how people can actually submit something. I think that's
Now, why
really
is
cool.
Shakespeare so small?
Well, he's a kid.
It's the Youth Writers Competition, Josh.
Is he getting testosterone shots?
Tell us about this one, Doug.
Oh, this was a gentleman in Easton last week. He was from Massachusetts, and he was a volunteer for the National Motorist Association. And I guess it was Old Mill Road near Cobb's Mill. I guess he contacted the State Department of Transportation and found that the speed limit was 25 miles an hour, and I guess the town had it at 50 miles an hour for both ends.
15 or 50?
15.
15.
And so I guess it's the sort of thing that kept him awake at nights because he
Well, yeah,
counted
that's really
the police
interesting.
department.
He
And
needs to
complained
stay in
about it,
Massachusetts and worry about Massachusetts.
Yeah, it's,
Stop. We have enough people from Massachusetts coming down to Connecticut to tell us how to do things.
I was going to say, my geography doesn't tell me that Massachusetts borders Weston, but
But I
that
guess
was
the
just
guy-
me.
you know,
I was
I-
a little confused by that one, but
And I
that's
guess
a
the
little
guy's an
artistic
MIT
license.
grad, and this is his hobby. So
Well, to each his own.
there are more important things to worry about. But what the heck?
Oh, I like this one. I believe this is likely for Lewisboro, right? Or one
That's
Westchester
the
County paper.
conservation center with the wolves. And
Oh,
I was just thinking last week, wow, when it went down to -6, it's like,
What do the animals do?
I hope they're okay. I'm sure they are. They're
I
wolves.
know.
But,
Yeah.
you know.
I know. I'm sure. I always wonder about that at the Beardsley Zoo too. What do they do with them during those cold snaps?
And this is an ongoing thing with Lewisboro. I always, like every couple months, I do something about the wolves, and they're always like walking around upright like wolfmen or werewolves. And
I still haven't gone there, but I'd love to someday.
a great place.
And this is for Monroe. It looks like we have the Phantom of the Opera donating to St. Peter's Organ Fund.
Episcopal Church, they need funds for the organ, which I think is nearly 50 years old. So it's just
Very
another little
cool.
thing on how you can help out in the town.
It is. It's a nice way to kind of promote what's going on.
I-
If people
and-
miss the front page story, they can see the cartoon. It's
And you
another
noticed
way
I
to
did
reach
the
out.
old stage Phantom there as opposed to Lon Chaney horrifying ones.
Yes. I appreciate that, Doug. And I love this one too. This is the Leprechaun Leap. I believe that's in Milford, right?
Yes.
I don't know anything about a Hobbit hop. Oh.
Again, the bad puns.
I think the toes are great on that little hobbit, I think.
Got the hair on the toes. You got
I know. Look at him in the background. Look at Gimli. That's
So that's what Gandalf looks like without his shirt
Or is that
on.
Gimli or am I? Yeah, that's
Gimli's
Gimli.
the dwarf.
Yep.
Got Legolas on the far end
Yep.
there with his flotation device.
Dressed like a
I was worried that I was
European swimmer.
confusing my dwarves from, Lord of the Rings
Aragorn,
and
the
Hobbit.
only normal-looking one there.
Yes, exactly. And now this is another play on words.
Yep.
What is that locust problem? He's angry because our renovation was approved and his parking lot expansion was not. This is for New Canaan. Tell us a little bit about that.
Just the name of the lot is the Locust Parking Lot. So I've been having fun with that for years.
Because they continue to put off building this locust parking garage. They've been putting it off for 4 or 5 years now.
Yep.
They continue to find other projects to
Right.
do. Yeah. So.
And speaking of parking,
Yeah, tell us about
Ridgefield.
this one. Oh, right. Route 35, the road work that's been going
right,
on
Main
there.
Street and Route 35. It's just they're always looking for parking in that town too. And any given day, those roads are a parking lot.
They are. Especially, I know there's been some road work on Route 35
Oh.
that's especially slowed
Yep.
things down lately. So good one there. I hear that a new supermarket may be moving in down the street. Oh, nice.
Why?
I love that. Actually,
This
big
is for
one.
Shelton here in Shelton, right?
Shelton, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is. It's going to be close to a lot of other supermarkets
It's
here.
sort of a copy of the old GE ad when they go, G, no GE.
I like that. And tell us about this one.
This is Stratford High. They want to get their reimbursement, and if they don't get it soon, the reimbursement cost is going to keep going down. And the school's thinking to himself, well, condition myself is going to keep going down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's
So-
been a lot of talk about that, a lot of stories on that in the Stratford Star. And I think we have one more. Trumbull will host Scouts in Government Day. Tell us about this one.
We were talking last week about the sniping going on at Town Hall there, so this is just continuing that. The Scouts get to sit in a city hall and see how the town is run. And we're just hoping that the Scouts traits will maybe rub
off on some of the Trumbull politicians. I like that. I
A
like
Trumbull
that
Boy
one.
Scout hanging out at Town Hall will come out, with
Jaded
demerit badges, I think.
That might be my favorite one this week, Doug. Awesome job.
Now, Eric, I was wondering about my voice. I was watching the thing last week, and I noticed my voice didn't seem to project that much.
Oh no.
Maybe it was the mic. Maybe it's just not my voice. So I'm thinking, as a cartoonist, maybe in the future I can.
Yes,
you know,
we'll
we
just
can
put it up there.
Put the things in there.
I love it. I think you should walk around with that.
Do you have thought bubbles also, though?
Yeah, exactly. And I was thinking maybe if I
Maybe we
get
don't
you
wanna show
upset,
this.
we can do like a burst that says Biff or Pow, and you can like.
All right, you work on those for
I
next
will.
week. All right,
Thanks, Doug.
Well, thanks so much. We will talk to
Okay,
you next
thank
week.
you.
Appreciate it as always.
No problem.
Well, before we wrap things up, Josh, on CT Pulse, I know there were a few stories that
Yeah.
you were following this week.
Well, at least one, I think, and this is something that we haven't really talked about on here, but a recent study came out. It's a Gallup poll. They do these all the time, and it's that Connecticut and New Jersey lead in the percentage of residents who would like to leave. So nearly half, 46% of Connecticut and New Jersey residents say they'd like to leave their state if they had the opportunity. Montana has the smallest percentage of residents who want to leave, only 13%.
I've heard Montana's pretty great. I'd love to
Yes,
visit it.
I'm
It's
sure their
supposed to be
taxes are
beautiful.
lower than they are out here. So it's just kind of one of those things that we continue to see here in Connecticut as the taxes continue to rise. We saw a big corporation, of course, announce that it was leaving recently in GE and other businesses. So
What's interesting, though, is according to that Gallup poll, only 12% of Connecticut residents who report they would like to move actually plan to do so, which, of course, it is hard to pick everything up and move.
You got to find a job, maybe.
So far, there's no planned mass exodus.
But this is tied into, Connecticut is often rated one of the worst states to retire in. And so it's, those 12% of people who report they might move in the next 12 months could be those who are retired, because it's, along with the weather that we've had this time of year and the taxes and the traffic, like we just saw in some of Doug's cartoons.
And now another interesting story you picked up on from the Connecticut Mirror, a shifting ground for artificial turf in Connecticut. This was an interesting story, and we're often hearing about artificial turf. I mean, most of the high school fields are artificial turf now. And I remember being back in Ridgefield years ago in probably 2009, and they had put in an artificial turf field, and the health department encouraged them to put up signs warning students to stay well hydrated if, the crumb rubber heats up. And some people were upset by that. Like, why are we putting up these signs? There's no proven, record that these actually cause any health issues.
No, but there's no proven record that they don't.
Exactly,
also, and there is an increase. They don't know if there's a correlation with it, but there's some kids who've had some cancer after playing on them. Trinity Catholic was the last high school in the Fairfield County Interscholastic Athletic Conference, which we cover intensely here at the HAN Network, to have a grass field. They tore that up this offseason. They're putting in artificial turf. We're seeing more baseball teams play on artificial turf. And you do feel how hot it gets, certainly in the warm weather. And I just think it's also kind of too bad the kids aren't playing on natural grass anymore.
Yeah.
And there's that with it, and it it certainly saves some money. They don't have to have people mow the lawns and all those sorts of things. But if we do all these other things that we worry about kids' health, and I really think that it'd be nice if these school districts put a little bit of a halt to these things and really made sure that there was something. Right, that it was safe for the kids. We can't say, it might not be safe. If it was something else, we installed, all these, unbreakable glass now in all the schools so people can't sneak in, and we do everything else. Plus, artificial grass is ugly. Who doesn't love fresh cut grass, playing on real grass? It's, everything's fake nowadays.
Though, of course, others would argue it gives them more opportunity to actually play. Because there's less issues with that. But we know you are not a fan of it.
Yes, but okay,
I'm kind of in the middle. I don't really have a strong feeling about it either way. I think, obviously, regular grass is better. But those are just a couple of the stories we're following this week. That's going to do it for CT Pulse. Next week, our special guest is going to be State Senator Bob Duff. Really excited to have him, so check that out. And, of course, if you missed anything, you can catch us on demand later at HAN.network. We'll see you next week.